We are now joined by our Coors Light pole winner, Joey Logano, driver of the number 22 Shell Pennzoil Ford for Team Penske. This is Joey's third.
Seeing yourself up there.
This is Joey's third consecutive pole at Martinsville, and he is the first to accomplish that feat here since Jeff Gordon in the 2003-2004 season. So congratulations. We'll open it up for questions in just a second, but just talk a little bit about your run out there today and what it means to start from the pole.
Well, first off, anytime you can tie Jeff Gordon at a record that he's got here at Martinsville is makes you feel good. I didn't know that was up for grabs today, but nice to be able to at least get close to something he's done here. The fact of the matter is we don't have one of those trophies yet. We figured out the qualifying part really well. Not the hot dog one, the clock. I don't really want the hot dog one, but we really want to be able to win this race. This is something we've been so close to, and we have a little extra motivation coming up here this week to really show what we're made out of. So it's nice to be able to go up here and do what we know how to do, execute qualifying like we know how to at this racetrack. And ever since we unloaded this morning, it was top of the board. It was a fast race car. We knew that. We just had to keep our heads in the game, do what we know how to do.
Okay, we'll open it up for questions for Joey. We'll start in the front here with Kenny.
Kenny Brooks with NASCAR.com. What is the difference between being able to capture a pole or three poles in a row and being fast on Sunday? I mean, are you driving the different lines out there? How much different is the car set up?
It's a lot different. And here probably more than most racetracks because you think about going fast here for one lap and going fast here for 500 laps. You need a car that is fast at lap 400. And if we did what we did today, it wouldn't make it. There's no way that I don't think I would make it. I know after 5 laps, I'm breathing so hard inside this car. I don't know why qualifying at Martinsville gets me more than anywhere else we go. It gets the adrenaline going for sure. But, it's just such a razor's edge that you're running on. And in the race, you really can't do that because your tires would wear out so quick. And you may be fast for a few laps for sure, but it'd fall off pretty hard. So you definitely got to change your whole mindset when you go from qualifying to race trim here, probably more than most places.
Okay, we'll go to Jeff next.
Jeff Gluck from USA Today. Obviously, it was a big topic coming into this week. What happened last year?
What happened?
I think you weren't as happy last time you were here. Was the Kenseth deal on your mind when you walk into the track and obviously like when you left here last time it was a pretty down moment. Does that play into the motivation to come back here and have a really good weekend?
Well, it's hard to be quite honest with you. I mean, it's hard to erase it from your mind, right? It's there. It happened. It's in the past, though. But it is something that drives you. And you got to use things like that to motivate you, not only you as in your team. And I think, rewatching the race and stuff like that, if that doesn't give you a little fire, nothing does. So I know I felt really excited and really pumped up and jacked up to come to this racetrack and, show what we're made out of. So this is a good start. Qualifying here is more important than any other racetrack we go to. Having a good pit stall pays a lot here because you're coming down pit road so many times. So I think it pays really big here. And also starting up front allows you to save your car like we talked about earlier. So, we got a good start for sure. We got 500 laps to go and we got a couple of practice sessions tomorrow in between.
When did you rewatch the race?
Last night. I went to sleep not very happy. But ready to go.
Okay, we'll go to the back. Tucker?
Tucker White, SpeedwayMedia.com. Joey, a number of drivers were having trouble with brakes today. Was that something you had trouble with today, and is that something you foresee will be an issue on Sunday?
Brakes are something that you always think about when you come to Martinsville. You use them a lot, right? You use them 1,000 times. You're stopping twice a lap, so and you're on them hard. You got to really slow down for these flat, sharp corners. So, it's always a fine line. These brake companies, though, these days do such a great job giving us something that we can abuse for quite a long time throughout a race. But the fact of the matter is, if you go a little bit too much, they heat up, they start burning up. You putting heat into your tires through the rotors. So there's just definitely there's a certain way. Obviously, you don't want to go too much with it, and just knowing when push and when not to.
Okay, next we'll go to Bob, and then over to the far right, and then back to Nate.
Bob Pockris, ESPN. You kind of answered it, but when you talked about that, you had a lot of motivation here when you opened up. I mean, were you referring to last year? I mean, is it that kind of as big a motivator as we might think?
It is a motivator. There's no doubt. And as an athlete, you should use things to motivate you. You should use things to fire you up. That's what I think drives people to work harder and to have that right attitude. And that drive is something that I've learned. There's another step inside of me that day, and being able to reach that and achieve that on a consistent basis is something that I find very important now to reach. And so I definitely use that. I use it as something that was a good thing that day. And it's hard to take something good out of that day, but I found something that I feel like was larger than a championship in my eyes.
Barry Richmond, Piedmont Broadcasting Corporation. Over here.
Hey, the sound still comes from the same place, so it's hard for me to
stereo
find you.
You were talking about the pole and how much of a challenge it is here at Martinsville, but 3 consecutive poles, 2 different seasons. Is there a common thread that you all as a team have found? Is it driver? Is it car? Is it what gives you that magic here in being able to get those laps you need?
It's teamwork. And I know that's a cliche answer, but it really is. The driver can't do it on his own, and the car can't do it on his own. The team can't do it on their own. So everyone's got to work together as one team out there. And Todd and I have really spent a lot of time understanding why we've been fast here. And in the past, you wonder why we weren't, right? And you make a little gain here, you make a little gain here, and eventually it's like, okay, all the pieces of the puzzle are starting to come together. You just keep finding a piece everywhere, and you start to make something out of it. And we really understand why we go fast, and that's the most important thing. You can hit on something every now and again by accident, but you're not going to do that over and over again if you don't understand why you're doing it. And I think that's something our team's done a great job at, is really understanding why we do certain things to our race car, or why I drive the car a certain way, and really communicating that to each other.
Okay, next for Nate.
Nate Ryan, NBC Sports. I have 2. A few of us talked to Matt Kenseth on Wednesday. I don't know if you saw this, but he was asked about the fact that the track used the crash in its promotional marketing materials, and he said he could kind of see both sides of it. You have any thoughts on it?
I can't blame them. Yeah, you're trying to sell tickets, right? I mean, in my eyes, hey, is it great racing that happened? No. Did it draw a lot of attention to the Speedway? Yes. If I ran the racetrack, would I do that? I got to put myself in his shoes. Yeah, I would. So I get it. I remember going to Dover after we flipped there 8 times and looking at the program, and I had one of those ones that moved, and I had the monster with my car in its hand, and every time you moved it, it slammed it into the ground. And I said, wow, that kind of sucks from my point of view, but to everyone else, they probably thought that was a big moment in that race. So sometimes you can't look at everything through your lens particularly. You got to look through other people's lenses and look at a bigger picture and have a little bigger scope than that.
Okay.
Peacefully.
Yeah.
The second thing is the crash that involved Brad and Kenseth last year happened after you and Brad obviously were working together on restarts to try to let one guy in front of the other. Is that just something? Can you do that differently this time around? Did you learn anything last year, or is that just something that's the nature of the beast here? With inside the only place to be, if your teammates and you're on the front row, you're going to work that way together.
That's something that every teammate does out there. It's something that may be more obvious to most right now, because I felt like the 2 Penske cars were the best cars here in the fall. So we were both up front a lot and doing that. I feel like it worked out pretty smooth every time, to be honest with you. The way I looked at it is the way, either one of us was able to come down in front. I didn't really check up the field much. I thought it went pretty smooth. And I can count ton of times I've seen Hendrick cars do it or Gibbs cars do it, and everybody does it, right? It's part of it, because you get stuck on that outside lane. I mean, it's brutal, and I was actually kind of interested. I was watching the race last night, and they replay the spotters trying to get a driver down, and how intense that spotter is trying to yell at their driver to get in that hole. That's how much it means to get to the bottom, and that's why when you're with your teammate and you have the opportunity to work together, it really helps, because I mean, you can be a winning car and you start second or fourth and you go back to sixth or seventh. It takes the whole run to get back to where you started, so that's why getting down to the bottom and working these restarts in the right way is so important, to be able to even have a car to race at the end.
If it's not your teammate, it's also sort of being fifth and second, right?
I'd rather be third. but I mean, it depends. Sometimes fifth is better than second. If you had to look at those far apart, that would be kind of tough, but quite possibly that could be the case.
Okay, we'll go to Al and then finish up in the back with Matt.
Yeah, Joey, Al Pierce from Auto Week. I've asked some other guys this, but you're the first Ford driver, so your answer may be different. Does the downforce come into play here at all? And the other half of that question is, overall, generally speaking, do you as a Ford driver like the new package, or is it still a work in progress?
To answer your second part, love the package. I think it's definitely in the right direction. I think when you get behind other cars, it does not affect the car behind as much. It still does, of course. It's always going to. Something's punching a hole in the air until we figure out a different way of doing it, which I have no clue how that would be. I'm not an engineer. I'm just a driver. But, until we figure out what that is, there's always going to be some hole in the air. But the fact of the matter is we've made it so much better on being behind another car and being able to race. And I think that's shown at every single race so far, that there's been better racing than what we had last year, for sure. So I like that part. Here at Martinsville is going to be probably the least amount of change from last year, because it's the slowest racetrack we go to. So downforce plays the least amount. But I'm sure it will play a little bit in the race when you tuck up right behind somebody. Because even at Martinsville here, when you get really close to another car, you lose air on the nose, and you can definitely tell. So aero does come into play here. But the downforce change is probably the least amount here. We've been in qualifying trim the whole time too, so I probably don't have the best read on it yet. I may know a little bit more tomorrow when we get back in the race trim.
Okay, go ahead with Matt in the back.
Matt Weaver, Racer.com. Joey, when we come here, typically we talk about the big three. We talk about Jeff and Jimmy and Denny. We throw in Dale Jr. a little bit. But if you look at the past 2-3 years, you've really been right there with those guys. Do you get here and kind of feel overlooked sometimes coming to Martinsville?
Not when I get introduced to driver intros. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, those guys have all won races here. I haven't. So how are you supposed to talk about me? You know what I mean? We've won a lot of poles and we've led a lot of laps now, but we haven't won the trophy yet. So, Jeff's not here anymore, so it should be a little easier. But I think Chase is pretty good as well. So I'm sure he's going to be up there racing with us too.
Okay, and we'll take our last question from Lee.
Lee Spencer, Motorsport.com. You think it's fair to say last year, and I mean, all things being equal, you can't predict what's going to happen on the closing laps, but was the only thing standing between you and victory lane last year your incident with Kenseth, because you had a car that was just dialed in? I mean, you had the strongest car here, and if you go the distance, I mean, there's probably no one that can catch you.
Yeah, it felt like, there's definitely points in that race that we had the best car. There's points in the race Brad had the best car. There's points in the race that the 4 was the best, the 24 was the best, the 20 was the best at times. But at that point in the race, towards the end, I felt like our car definitely picked up. The track went through a little bit of a swing as the race went, and we made some good adjustments to our car to get the speed out of it that we needed to. And I felt like at that point in the race, towards the end there, we were the best car on the racetrack. And as the leader kind of pulling away, I felt like that, we just needed to run our race, and everything was going to go fairly smooth from there out. There wasn't many laps to go. But, knowing that gives us some confidence that, hey, we know what to do. We know how to work and how to go fast here. Do I feel like we should have won the race? It's hard to say. You know what I mean? It's There's so many things that could have happened, but it's just so many different elements that could happen. We could have had another caution, and we could have had a different strategy, or had a bad restart, or pit stop maybe went wrong. I mean, it could have been anything, right? So it's hard to say, did that cost you a win? Who knows? But it definitely didn't help. We know that.
All right, Joey, congratulations. Thanks for your time and good luck on Sunday.
Great. Thank you, guys.